My name is Divyesh Kumar Sharma. I'm Director Cuts International, your host of the event. And I'm joined by my team, Trineni Sen and Kavya Ranjan Raju, both Senior Research Associate, and Ruchi Singhal, who will take you through the presentation. I'm also thankful for the IT and support team who together make this webinar reach you seamlessly. Before we enter, a quick house rule announcements to make. This event is recorded. All participants are requested to keep their mics off. All speakers are requested to keep their mics and videos on. Request all the speakers to kindly crisp their versions within 5 minutes range so that we can have more latitude on the agenda. Thank you. Gentlemen, with this roundtable, we are making effort to discuss the state-level EV policy and plan of action for Rajasthan and further accelerating the uptake of EVs in the state through CUT's tested rank model, which is research, advocacy, networking, and capacity building. The project is focused in the catchments of Jodhpur, Jaipur, Kota, Udaipur, and Alwar, the 5 non-attainment cities in Rajasthan under the National Climate Action Plan. The aim of this roundtable conference is to bring together diverse stakeholders present in the EV supply ecosystem in Rajasthan, discuss the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats for each player in order to converge and comprehend the supply side challenges in the EV ecosystems of Rajasthan. Further, explore potential policy interventions for tackling these challenges. Ladies and gentlemen, I will now move on to my colleague Ruchi Singhal for a warm-up presentation. Ruchi, since this is a closed door with subject experts around, could you quickly run us through your insights on the PowerPoint?
Ruchi, you're on mute.
Yeah.
Thank you. Over to Ruchi.
So as Divyesh has already explained the agenda for the roundtable, coming next slide. I'll quickly run you through the project brief and the EV provisions, existing EV provisions in Rajasthan. The key insights from field inquiries we have been doing, the issues and recommendations from stakeholders, and EV developments taking across the nation. Next. So in this project, the objective is to conduct a state research and come up with an actionable roadmap for uptake of EV adoption in Rajasthan. The methodology is basically we will be doing 3 main steps: supply side gap analysis, demand side gap analysis, and learning from other states. For doing these gap analysis, we have selected the 5 non-attainment cities as Divyesh mentioned already. For learning from other states, we have been doing a secondary research in which we are comparing the electric vehicle policy of all the states, and then we will be doing field inquiries to 3 states with the final EV policy focusing on adoption side, production side, and one on both. Next. So current EV developments in Rajasthan are the government has recently announced that land will be provided on concessional rate for EV charging. For electric vehicle subsidies have been announced. Also, REFC order is there for lower tariffs. We've been eagerly waiting for Rajasthan EV policy now. Apart from that, there are some allied policy which could be leveraged in development of EV ecosystem in Rajasthan, like industrial startup innovation policies, etc. Next. While interacting with the different category of stakeholders in these 3 cities, we found that since the manufacturing is done in a region, but its reach is global or national, and for meeting that competition, the currently manufacturers are facing the issue of missing elements in EV manufacturing ecosystem in the state. Also, the electricity tariff rate is comparatively higher. The inverted duty structure is a main pain point for manufacturers, specifically for battery manufacturers. They have an issue of high certification and testing costs, and there is a mismatch between eligibility criteria in central and state guidelines. For dealers, we found that there is a high demand of electric two-wheelers in some cities, but the supply is less. Also, they face hurdle in providing financial services for the vehicles. And with every fuel-dependent vehicle, there is a chicken-egg dilemma. For charging stations, they face hurdle in getting more than one electricity connection for electric vehicles, and there is a lower limit on LT connections. Next. These are few recommendations we found from stakeholders which could act as a way forward for EV adoption. For equipment charging, for equipment testing and certification, some subsidy could be provided. Also, public banks should come forward in promoting EV financing. Skill training of local mechanics should be done for primary services so that it will increase the confidence of users. Also, right channelization of fund like CSR for social development. These kind of channelization could be done. Next. So after seeing the key insights from field, these are some amazing developments happening around the nation. Like Grief Gardens have announced development of EV retail store, and this will happen in every city of India. So also every state is now declaring an EV zone for adopting EV in their region. The private and public fleets are now targeting for last mile connectivity by electrification and the transition of their fleet to green. With these amazing opportunities, there are some added risks which cannot be ignored. Like there is a dependency of charging stations on internet. So during the scenarios of internet ban, there will be automatic lockdowns. And also the fires which came up in the recent news. Next. So that was all. Now the focus is to hear from all of you and learning from all the stakeholders. Over to you, Dipesh.
Thank you, Ruchi. That was absolutely highlighting and precise. Ladies and gentlemen, let me also remind you that at CUTS, ever since its inception in 1983, we have been committed to its mission of safeguarding consumer interests. Along with its prestigious position as a global policy think tank, CUTS has been instrumental in implementing several projects related to power reforms ever since 1999. Now, on this roundtable, we have a stellar round of panel of keynote speakers. We have authorities from RICO. I'm awaiting Mr. Shri Ashutosh A.T. Pednekar, also joined by Srimati Rukmani Rayar, Executive Director with Rajasthan State Industrial Development and Investment Corporation, and followed on with Shri Naveen Arora, Managing Director, Jaipur Vidyut Vitram Nigam Limited, as well as Shri Rakesh Chopra, Managing Director, Rajasthan Electronics and Instruments Limited. Let me quickly, since I can see on the screen, MD JBVNL has taken time to join us. Thank you so much, Shri Naveen Arora Sahab. Thank you.
Good afternoon, sir. Good afternoon. On behalf of the MD Discom, I am SP Gupta, Chief Engineer Headquarters.
Thank
MD
you.
sir is busy in some other meeting and probably will be joining very soon. He has been intimated.
No worries, no worries. So we will probably jump right now to, I can see him, Shri Rakesh Chopra, MD REIL. Sir, moving.
Good afternoon.
So very good afternoon. Thank you so much for accepting this invite on a short notice. I know you've been struggling with a lot of timelines and health. Moving the spotlight on you as the keynote speaker. We have the privilege of having you as a technical expert. I can also call you as a technocrat. Shri Rakesh Chopra does not need introduction. Managing Director, REIL. Prior to taking over as REIL, he was Senior Most General Manager and was looking after diverse areas of electronics and information technology space of REIL. So very warm welcome to you once again, and thank you for joining us in the roundtable. REIL has almost captured a very critical position of being a crucial link in the developing of the EV ecosystem. You've seen a very ambitious target of EOIs also, as we see the newspapers and the media rounding about, drawn with corporations, Jaipur Metro, private stakeholders such as Okaya, and many more. So can we have your perspective on this? And what are the prospects here? Over to you, Sri Rakesh Chopra, sir.
Okay. Good afternoon to all of you. As you know, India is among a handful of countries that support the global EV30 at the rate of 30 campaign, which targets to have at least 30% new vehicle sales by be electric by 2030. As per FAME India website, the number of EVs sold in Rajasthan is approximately 6% of the total EV sold in India. It is inevitable that an accessible and robust network of electric vehicle charging infrastructure is an essential prerequisite to achieving the ambitious target of EVs by 2030. Major roadblock for the successful implementation of EV in the state is the lack of charging infrastructure. When EV charging stations are limited to only a few numbers, it will discourage consumers to shift to the EVs. Let me also tell you about the current initiatives and future prospects of REL for development of EV ecosystem in Rajasthan by setting EV charging infrastructure. The company was allotted responsibility by Department of Heavy Industry, Government of India for setting up of around 200 charging stations at Delhi, Jaipur and Chandigarh under phase 1 of India FAME scheme to promote EV mobility, and the work has been successfully completed. We have installed around 400 numbers of EV charging stations under FAME 1 and installation of another 1061 number of EVCS under FAME 2nd in 45 different cities in India is under process. As far as Rajasthan is concerned, as per the DHI sanction, REL has installed 50 numbers of EV chargers, 45 AC001 and 5 numbers of DC001 in Jaipur city. Apart from above, we have also installed 60 numbers of DC001 fast charger in Rajasthan at retail outlets on Jaipur Delhi and Jaipur Agra national highways. Total EV charging station sanctioned in Rajasthan is 191 in the cities of Kota, Ajmer, Jaipur, Udaipur and Jodhpur. Now, out of these 191, we have received locations for only 60 numbers of charging stations, and 131 numbers of locations are still remaining. We are continuously following with the concerned agency for these remaining locations. I would also like to tell you the innovation done by REL in case of EV charging stations. In fact, what we have done integration of rooftop solar with EV charging stations. As you know, both PV and EV batteries operate on DC. This could potentially change the landscape of EV charging. Solar energy will help reduce T&D losses, thereby reducing the CO2 emissions. We have installed approximately 25 numbers of solar charging station which is integrated with solar. In addition to these, REL has sent proposal for installing charging stations on highways and expressways across India, and we are fully geared up to take the development of EV charging stations not only in Rajasthan but all over the country. I would also like to tell you about some of the key initiatives taken by government of Rajasthan for promotion of EVs. One is state government land at the rate of 50% of DLC rate for first 500 solar EV charging stations, then 100% exemption in normal transmission and wheeling charges for 10 years, exemption of 100% electricity duty consumption for 7 years, reimbursement of SGST amount to all types of EVs. Additionally, electric two-wheelers and three-wheeler buyers will also be able to avail subsidy via a lump sum grant amount based on the vehicle battery capacity. So in conclusion, I can say REIL has a clear potential of emerging as a flag bearer and front runner among all the states with respect to storage and EV sector development, if it is supported with a strong policy and regulatory framework, focus on R&D and investment opportunities. I believe that this is a good platform on which we can discuss and share the opportunities, challenges, and their solutions, which would be helpful to taking the EV journeys ahead in the state of Rajasthan. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chopra. This insight was very comprehensive, and this in fact builds another pitch for a sustainable ecosystem of EV charging, because the convergence of conventional EV charging systems along with solar EV charging systems ensures a lot of footprint on the sustainability aspect. But before, so there are issues or probably highlights in terms of how the power system and the grid essentially moves over it. I would love to come to Shri P.K. Gupta, since MD JVDNL has probably not joined in right now. But before that, can we just check if ED RICO Srimati Rukmani Rayar has come in?
She has joined. Yes.
Thank you. Can we have the video on so that we can probably...
Good afternoon, everyone.
Very good afternoon, Madam Rayar. Thank you so much for sparing your time on this roundtable. The roundtable essentially sets its context with Mr. Chopra coming in and probably giving a more insight about how the overall EV ecosystem, the charging systems takes position. We would like to come down to you in terms of understanding how RICO's position, what is the perspective in terms of provision of infrastructure, land, and other ancillaries in terms of a complete package. Could you please give us some insights? Over to you.
Thank you very much for giving us this opportunity, and I'd like to thank all the panel members on behalf of RICO for inviting us here. I have a presentation to make where we like to discuss what RICO is doing in this sector and how in Government of Rajasthan this is one of our priority trust sectors. We understand its importance in the growing economy. So I'd like to share with you all some of the developments that are happening at the government level in this sector. So at the outset, I'd like to share with you all that we are soon coming up with the EV policy, which will be specifically for our entrepreneurs who are deciding to come to our state and investing in our state. We are looking at purchase incentives, which will be given upfront in form of subsidy, where we'll be thinking of 10,000 subsidy for two-wheelers and 20,000 for three-wheelers. Apart from that, we will also have several other incentives related to purchase, one-time tax waivers, green tax waivers, permit fee waivers, and enabling incentives for mobilities and adopting other logistics which are key to the growth of the sector. We also want to encourage as a state the purchase of EVs in the government department for official vehicles, urban transport vehicles, as well as interstate buses. We are also reserving parking for the EV, and we'll be also incentivizing them in our toll taxes. The Department of Industries and Commerce, specifically in the Government of Rajasthan, is emphasizing on this in two fronts. We're providing a conducive environment for encouraging the manufacturing of the EV in our state. EV is also the thrust sector in automobile and auto component sector in the state of Rajasthan. We have special industrial areas and parks for EV. Apart from our RIPS policy, which is Rajasthan Investment Promotion Scheme of 2019, we are moving ahead and in that giving trust sector benefits to EV in that policy, and we are also facilitating charging infrastructure and swapping stations in our RICO industrial areas. Also, we'll be promoting EV startups. So when it comes to manufacturing, Rajasthan, with the presence of OEM across car, commercial vehicle and two-wheeler segment, More than 100 prominent automobile units are already present in the state of Rajasthan, and they have been benefiting from the policies of RICO over the past few years. Most of this sector is concentrated in the NCR Bhiwadi region. We have big names as players in the two-wheeler and four-wheeler segment there. The Neemrana belt along the Alwar city falls under NCR, so it gets all the benefits that the NCR region derives from even Government of India, apart from Government of Rajasthan. New projects of auto components like brakes are also coming in Rajasthan. We have companies manufacturing wiring harnesses for the auto sector as well. We would also like to share with you all that RICO has a country-specific SEZ, which is one of its kind. So the Japanese SEZ is there in our state. And most of the companies in the Japanese SEZ belong to the automobile sector. And Okinawa Autotech is a electronic vehicle company which is already having its presence in Bhiwadi, and they're now looking at an expansion project, and they're in talks with RICO and BIP in this regard. Maita buses of Hyderabad also have an assembly plant in Bagru in Jaipur, and they're also looking to expand their operations in the state of Rajasthan. The existing automobile industry ecosystem provides a very strong base which can be leveraged into the manufacturing of electric vehicles and related components in the state. The supplement EV manufacturing, there is electronic manufacturing clusters in Bhiwadi region, in Karoli, and one is in Salarpur by Elsina. The Elsina group is concentrating on mostly the electric and mostly with the development of electric components and equipments, as well as the infrastructure is such that they already have 50 acres of land, and now they're looking for an expansion of another 50 acres with the support of Government of India. We have Technology Center of Ministry of MSME, Government of India, which is functional at Pathredi Industrial Area in Bhiwadi region. With the presence of auto industry, there's a network of educational institutions in Rajasthan, so because of which the manpower available in our state is very conducive to the growth of this sector. I'll also like to share with you all some of the other infrastructure developments that are happening in the state of Rajasthan, which are very conducive to the growth of the sector. For example, the Delhi-Mumbai Industrial Corridor. It is connecting the northern and the western market of India, and Rajasthan is benefiting significantly because 39% of the dedicated freight corridor passes through the state of Rajasthan. 8 out of the 44 identified economic corridors also pass through our state. So Rajasthan enjoys easy access to almost 40% of the country's population market. Thus, setting up industry in Rajasthan not just helps logistically and in the terms of transport cost, but also because of the approachable market and the connectivity in terms of infrastructure that is coming up. The industrial relations in Rajasthan are excellent. The law and order situation in Rajasthan is very good, and the industries do not enjoy any, they have very good relationships with all the investments that are happening here. And we also don't have any kind of issues with power and land. We have very competitive land pricing in comparison to other NCR region states. Rajasthan also has a positive business environment. We have sold about 2,800 plots this year. Although this was a COVID year, even despite that, our growth in RICO has been historic, to say the least. We are looking towards now expansion of RICO industrial areas, where we'll be launching about 100 to 200 more industrial areas in the coming 2 years. And we're also making industrial areas in every subdivision of the state of Rajasthan. That means we will have our expansion and footprints across the length and breadth of the state. We also have significant dimensional growth pillars that we like to talk about, because we have, apart from the DMIC, the Greater Bhiwadi project in terms of infrastructure, we have the Marwar industrial area in Jodhpur, Kakani, Rohat, Pali, which is going to significantly grow in the next coming 2 years. We also have sectoral thrust in our development policy. So we're looking at sectoral development. We're not just coming up with specific policies, but we're also coming up with areas which are specific to those policies. So if we're going to have a EV policy, we're also going to have an EV cluster zone where the companies can set up their enterprises and get the advantage of having a sectoral cluster development approach to growth. And in terms of ease of doing business, we have single clearance, single window clearance system, and now 14 departments across the state of Rajasthan will be giving clearances under one roof in one-stop shop that has been set up by the government of Rajasthan. In electric vehicle manufacturing, we, apart from the subsidies that are already given in RIPS, we'll be also giving 5% extra interest subsidy in term loan taken by the enterprise from financial institutions or state institutions, banks which are recognized by Reserve Bank, and for making investment in plant and machinery for a period of 5 years to a maximum 1 CR per year subsidy will be given. Capital subsidy equivalent to 25% of investment made on plant and machinery subject to maximum 50 lakh cap is also there, which is over and above the RIPS 2019. Auto component sector, I like to share, is also part of the thrust sector in the RIPS. And we also have the MSME Act 2019, whereby all the MSMEs which are being set up in the state of Rajasthan are exempt from any kind of clearances from any department for the 3 years of their setup, which makes it very easy for the enterprises in their terms of their transition into the state and into the business sector. We also have the Mukhyamantri Laghu Udyog Protsahan Yojana, where you loans at a very reasonable interest rates. And RICO is very proud to state that we have a very transparent land allotment policy whereby we give land in terms of e-auction and e-bidding. So it is a totally digital platform and a very transparent mechanism where everybody is rest assured that they will get their land at a competitive bidding price. Just having said all this, I think I like to conclude by saying that the infrastructure development that's happening in the state of Rajasthan through RICO and the general environment and the positioning of state of Rajasthan in terms of its geographic location and the benefits that we are receiving because of the projects like DMIC and dedicated expressways, which are benefiting the state of Rajasthan, are very significant. And in that terms, I'll invite through your medium all the enterprises that are keen to make an investment in our state in this sector. We are here and we're very looking forward to any kind of investment that may come in this sector in the state of Rajasthan. So thank you very much once again for giving us this opportunity to represent the interests of the states and to share with you all the progress that RICO is making in the sector. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Srimati Rayar. This presentation was not only comprehensive, but very passionate in terms of sharing a complete platform parcel package for the supplier sides in terms of what RICO envisages to do. It is RICO's essential flagship project of DMIC has been a shot in the arm for most of the industry growth. And the way we see that RICO is now planning to bring in EV startups, the way close monitoring in terms of bringing consumer and market together at a place and providing different platform schemes, benefit, subsidies, so on and so forth, sounds a very committed launching pad. However, we wish to rest assure you that at incapacity with cuts and the amount of stakeholders we are associated with and will as the roundtable will mileage for another 2 to 3 months and the project goes on for a longer term, we will be able to engage a lot of discussions, dialogues, and proactive engagements with RICO in terms of proliferating this program. Moving ahead from here, we see EV growth as commitment from RICO and also the projects and the way the national policies are panning out. But EV load planning challenges seem to now pan out because we clearly see an opportunity for utilities to chip in over here. Distribution network upgrades that enable EV interconnections in cities where overall power demand could essentially force substations and wire improvements with dependable and quality power and charging stations. On this note, ladies and gentlemen, let me quickly pose this question to the relevant window. I think MD JVVNL has joined us, or probably we have Mr. PK Gupta as senior as superintendent engineer commercial also along with him. Sir, can you hear us?
Good afternoon, sir. I am SP Gupta, Chief Engineer Headquarters.
Okay, I'm sorry.
On behalf of Jaipur Discom.
Okay.
And
Mr. Gupta, can I? So you have been a nodal agency within Discom and also in terms of connecting stakeholders and supply points for EV platform. Could you give us some insight on how
yes, sir. Yes,
yes,
sir.
Discom is essentially planning the network load management, reaching out, providing a perfect quality, durable, economical, affordable, and round-the-clock power to these EV charging stations in terms of building a
Sir,
strong.
as far as sir, let me tell you regarding the availability of the power. I would like to submit that there is no problem regarding the continuity and availability of the power throughout the state. And as far as the EV charging stations are concerned, they are normally presently they are being installed in cities areas only. And as far as city areas are concerned, at present, absolutely there is no problem of availability of power and continuity of power. And as far as infrastructure is concerned, as per the present RERC guidelines, the LT system is maintained for 50 kVA system, for which we are allowing LT system up to 50 kV demand. And beyond 50 kV demand, we are allowing ST system, for which our infrastructure is managed. And as and when the need arises, the system will be uh, strengthened and improved accordingly. And for this, we would like to share that for promoting EV charging stations, as and when whatever requirement will be there, we will be with the we will coordinate with all the departments, and certainly we will make our guidelines and we will frame the rules accordingly. And presently, for promoting the EV charging stations, as per the RERC guidelines, the concessional packages have been issued in favor of EV charging stations. For LT charging, the rates are very reasonable. They are 6 rupees per unit, and fixed charges are 40 rupees per HP per month for LT connections, and for ST connections, the charges are 6 rupees per unit, and the fixed charges are 130 rupees per kVA per month. Beyond that, there is a TOD rebate also. TOD, this means time of day. If the power is consumed in night hours, because it will be very much possible to charge the system during night hours, then for that we have provided 15% rebate on energy charges from 11 in the night to 6 in the morning. Beyond that, some other aspects were also narrated by my predecessors, like this setup of renewable energy generation plant, where the captive use has been allowed, and in that case, some incentive has been allowed, like in wheeling charges and state transmission charges and ED exemptions also. Beyond that, I think the scope of power sector is up to this limit, and if anything, as and when will come in future, we are with the system, and we will try to cope up with that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, PK Gupta, Mr. PK Gupta. This is a great amount of insight, and I'm sure that the urban area infrastructure is essentially very robust, and it is connected with automated feeder ring main units. As I see, as I've been part of most of the reform projects in Jaipur Discom, and there is no challenge in terms of urban areas, but of course we might have to look at the scalability of
One more thing, sir. One more
rural
thing
areas.
I would like. One more thing I would like to share that they have been. We have prioritized these EV charging stations on priority. For releasing the EV charging stations, a separate priority has been maintained by the department, and that's why we can say that out of priority connections are at present as on date available for EV charging stations, because a separate priority for release of connections are being maintained by the discoms. That's why I think there is no problem in release of electric connections to EV charging stations as on date.
Perfect. That's a complete overture of this discussion. I think, ladies and gentlemen, we've been through our keynote speakers, and now we move to the next round of this webinar, wherein we involve the stakeholders. I would request the spotlight keynote speakers, Mr. P.K. Gupta, Madam Rayar, and Mr. And the team from REIL, Mr. Chawla and Mr. Rakesh Chopra, to kindly stay with us, because now the discussion will essentially move up, bottom to up, and we will have the stakeholders putting up their questions. The stakeholder arrangement essentially is phased into four areas. We have EV manufacturers with us, Mr. Soham Kulkarni and Mr. Subhash Chaudhary. Mr. Soham Kulkarni is manufacturing and quality engineer with Battery, and Mr. Subhash Chaudhary, CEO, SSB Industries. Then we have battery manufacturing and R&D team, wherein we have Mr. Puneet Jain, founder Natural Battery Tech, Dr. Shahab Ahmed, assistant professor, IIT Jodhpur, and Mr. Rajiv Bansal as a special invitee as director, Okaya Power Group. On the charging infrastructure development space, we have Pushpendra Vishal Kaushal, business operation lead, SAREC, Sri Rupesh K. Chawla, special invitee, deputy general manager, Rajasthan Electronics and Instruments Limited. And we also have from the dealer sales service and spare part fraternity, we have Mr. Himanshu Saini, manager, Magnitude Motors, Mr. Rahul from Hero Electric, Mr. Robin from Ather, and we also have people from the academia, Dr. Ashish Malik, assistant professor, Manipal University, and Dr. Arun Kumar Verma, assistant professor, electrical engineering, MNIT. We, ladies and gentlemen, we also have Mr. Alok Rai as special invitees for assistant director, SMUE, and Mr. BC Datta, vice president, corporate affairs, Ola Electric. I will try to place Mr. Datta and a lot of people at the boundary of this discussion, because there would be a lot of discussion now moving in, and how the entire ecosystem is moving, so that we can have their responses along that side. Can I just quickly chip in with Mr. Soham Kulkarni? Is Mr. Kulkarni here with us?
Yes. Hello.
Hi, Mr. Kulkarni. You have been closely watching this sector. You have been also part of the initial exercise. How do you see Rajasthan versus other states, the kind of dynamics, and what are the policies? How the policies you see, in terms of panning out,
right.
How implication from the implication standpoint?
Right. So yeah. So in terms of subsidies for the consumer, Rajasthan offers a subsidy of about 2,500 rupees per kilowatt hour, and an additional 10,000 rupees for the one with a bigger battery pack than 5 kilowatts. However, the problem right now is that very few EV manufacturers have a battery pack bigger than 5 kilowatts, especially in the affordable range. So what happens is essentially giving incentives to only high-end performance EVs would be a hindrance to the inherent transition from combustion engines to EV vehicles. So we could go a route of Delhi or Maharashtra or Gujarat, where the subsidy is 5,000 rupees per kilowatt hour, and we can cap it at 10,000 or 25,000 or 30,000 like Delhi has. Consider, the entire consumer market is considered there. Another way of EV adoption would be subsidizing a certain group of two-wheeler consumers. So for example, in Gujarat, students studying from classes 9th standard up till colleges receive a 12,000 rupees subsidy covering over 10,000 lithium-ion electric two-wheelers. So Battery Electric Mobility has actually signed an MOU with the Gujarat government, where the student comes in, he buys the vehicle, and there's someone from the Gujarat government who comes in. He checks if there are no malpractices, the money is deposited directly into the student's account. So that would be something that could be a great addition to, the Rajasthan policy. We also do make affordable charging stations, which are powered by Rebos. Right now, we do have the capacity and the capability to actually roll out 5,000 charging stations in the next 3 or 4 months. However, the capital cost that is involved, which is over 1.2 crore rupees, is a major challenge for us. So these are the things which have essentially worked out for us in Gujarat and Maharashtra, where we have most of our dealers. But one of the reasons why we are in Jaipur is because it's close to the auto hub. It's close to Neemrana, Gurgaon, and Manesar, where most of our suppliers are. So these are essentially points from my end. Thank you.
Great, thank you. I think the engagement of youth in terms of reaching out consumers and providing a sustainable system is essentially a very innovative idea. And moving ahead, do we have Mr. Subhash Chaudhary with us over here? I saw him here with us. Probably his connection has dropped out. Never mind. Can we move on to Mr. Puneet Jain? Mr. Puneet Jain?
Yes, hi.
Hi, Mr. Jain. Welcome on board. I just wanted to have your insights in terms of how do you see the battery, the economies of scale largely in batteries. See, the batteries, the entire, somehow the R&D and the technology has matured with time. We've seen from normal lead batteries to lithium ion, and then probably we're now also exploring options with sodium. How do you see the entire battery system moving on, and how does it collaborate with giving a very sustainable mileage to the entire EV flying ecosystem?
Thank you for that question. How I see the collaboration has to happen between the electric vehicle OEMs, the charging stations, and the battery all together. These are not individual products. They have to be clubbed together and they have to go together. So because there's no standardization of batteries at the moment, so we particularly focus on the size and the shape of the batteries that go into the OEMs scooters. If there's a common platform where we can build that battery, that'd be the most useful thing for us as being adopted by the consumer as well, and also for us as battery manufacturers. Apart from that, to increase the adoption, I would say that first of all, lithium-ion has to be made more safer, and for it to be more safe, there has to be certain protocols, emergency protocols that needs to be installed in places, such as lithium-ion fire extinguishers that needs to be there in all OEMs and all dealers, and probably I would recommend to consumers because you don't know what can happen anytime. Although because there's a problem of education, there's a problem of knowing how to properly use a battery operated vehicle within the customer space. We cannot always blame an OEM. There's always a customer negligence that can create hampers in this nascent industry. So I would say that unless we have that infrastructure, I don't see. I feel that it should, increase adoption when we have that infrastructure. And also, we are facing a lot of problems with imports. 70% of our materials are Chinese imports or Taiwanese imports. So we are always reliant on the international geopolitics and international problems, such as the China shutdown of power, electricity shutdown. So that kind of has ripple effects to us as well. So we require some kind of assistance from the government as well in terms of import costs, reduction of GST. That's another problem with the OEMs and the battery space, the inverted duty structure. We need to be more competitive. They need to make us more competitive till we are importing all the materials, unless we have the local infrastructure in place to supply all the batteries, all the cells rather, in India itself. So which I can expect to come in 3-4 years. But till then, for a smooth takeoff of this industry, I believe that imports and taxation has to favor us. And financing and insurance are also parts of the batteries. The batteries get neglected as themselves individually. OEMs get all the EVs, they get all the financing and insurance, but not the batteries themselves. So we do require some kind of financing and insurance structures where people can buy the batteries as itself and also be insured against any losses. So that's how I see the increasing adoption of electric vehicles in the industry. Yes.
Perfect, Puneet. I think, Puneet, you probably, your insights actually highlight a very crucial and a very critical issue, that is standard operating procedures. There has to be a process, there has to be a standard operating procedures which needs to be adhered in terms of battery management. And there is undoubtedly that this is a very, very sensitive area to catch with. In fact, I would like to hold everyone tightly, because we also have Shri Rupesh Chawla on call with us, and he is AGM with REIL, and he's been confronting a lot of issues in terms of technicals and in terms of implication and other things. But we will come back to him, because I'm trying to assimilate all the questions for him so that we can pose him at the right spot. But before coming to him, Dr. Shahab Ahmed. Dr. Shahab Ahmed is essentially from IIT Jodhpur. Do we have him with us? I saw him in the window.
Yes.
Dr. Ahmed, thank you so much for coming in. You essentially come as an answer to most of our queries. The standard operating procedure, which probably Puneet highlighted, and apart from that, a robust supply chain management. We just saw something which was very unforeseen around UK, where we saw the entire oil system almost wrecking. We don't have the delivery of oil systems over there because of essentially because of poor supply chain. It is not. Let's not become probably pinpoint the issue, but there's a larger issue in terms of weak supply chain. Do you think, since you are a think tank and you're tracking this entire space very closely, how do you see the entire battery and the supply chain system moving in, and what's your thought about this?
Yeah, good afternoon all. So see, I would also not pitch a lot that why we require EV, but I would essentially say that there are a lot of challenges, right, as mentioned by other participants, right, starting from charging infrastructure to high cost of the components, as well as lack of technology, right, that is very important. Coming to the point what you asked, that the supply chain issues. I would emphasize on the fact that if we can, come up with more indigenous technologies, particularly, if we can bring a shift from lithium-ion technology to other materials which are available in abundance in India or with our allies, right? For instance, if things which are, available in Australia or some other countries which are having good allies with India, that would be much helpful for us. So that we don't have to, be dependent on China, for instance. See, this is one thing. Another very important thing is there are other materials which can give us really high capacities. So if I give you an example, for example, what we use in our mobile phone is also a lithium polymer battery, but the anode material, what we use is just graphite. So graphite is a carbon allotrope, and the capacity what we get from graphite is just 372 milliampere hour per gram. But with the lot of R&D and lot of the interest which has been shown by different researchers, now we have different materials which can give us very large capacities. For example, there is silicon, which is a anode material. It can give a capacity of as high as 4200 milliampere hour per gram. So this is almost 12 times more. And what Tesla and other key players in EV, what they are doing is basically now they are working on new materials so that we can have large specific capacities. So this will actually solve a very big problem. It will change the perspective. So why people are still hesitant about adoption of EV is we cannot run. Let us say if I want to go for an electric vehicle, I cannot run electric vehicle continuously for 500 kilometers, right? And that is just because I cannot have a battery which can drive my vehicle for long distances, or I may not be having enough charging infrastructure on the way. So finding the right material and having more dependencies on things which can be made in India, and which if import is required, that has to be done in such a way that we should not depend on countries which can show some dominance, or which can also affect the cost of the entire device. So yeah, so I would like to emphasize on more development of materials, both cathode, anode, electrolytes. So it's a complex system. So several dimensions, things can be done, and yeah. So material development is one of the very important aspects if we have to have high capacity batteries for electric vehicle adoption. Yeah, thank you. These are additions from my side.
Thank you, Dr. Emma. That was a great insight. You're talking about decentralizing the process in terms of not depending essentially on one country, and probably diversifying our purchase orders to different nations. And apart from that, you're also speaking about how the technology is also shifting, and there is a lot of progress in this space, and how we can probably we can continuously work on adaptation. Do we have can we close this question to the Okaya Power Group, Mr. Rajiv Bansal?
He has not been able to join us yet. He's facing some difficulties.
So Trineri, can you chip in with us in terms of, so we can probably speak to Mr. Bansal in a couple of minutes as he joins, but let's speak about the charging infrastructure developers. So essentially now the entire thing boils down to how do we have the charging infrastructure developers in position. Mr. Pushpendra Vishal Kaushal.
Yeah, hi Devesh.
Hi, Mr. Kaushal. You are business operation lead for Static.
Yeah.
And how do you see the entire landscape in terms of tariffs, in terms of charging stations, the linkages?
Tariff-wise, we do not see any problem because the tariff is pretty competitive. We do understand that there are fixed charges and understand that every DISCOM has its own charges which they need to balance out, because if they run in an unsustainable manner, they will not be able to survive, and ultimately we will not be able to get electricity. So that's completely fine. The major challenge that we face as of now is first in getting electricity connections. And the second challenge that we face is the LT cap limit. Like sir mentioned that the LT cap limit is at 50 kilowatts. We majorly, because the government agencies are majorly focusing on cities, the highways are the places which are getting left behind. And if I am a EV user, I would like to commute between two cities. And in case I am unable to drive my vehicle out of a city, I may not like to opt for an EV because I am restricting my usage. So that will always be a second vehicle, will never become a first vehicle of choice. So that is a problem that we are trying to solve, and we have been able to solve in multiple places. And we have a charger in Behror. Another one is coming up in Beawar. Behror connects Delhi to Jaipur, and Beawar connects Jaipur to Udaipur and Jodhpur. So the major challenge that we foresee is, first of all, the EV LT limit is at 50 kilowatts, whereas the DC fast chargers used by public or the passenger vehicles start with minimum of 30 kilowatts and go up to 60 or 120 kilowatts. And when we are investing in a charger, because there's no subsidy for chargers, you have subsidy for vehicles, you have subsidy for everything else, but there's no subsidy for charger. There's no subsidy in EV connection. So that is because security deposit is still there. You have to pay the fixed charge and everything. So there's no subsidy there. Now, the only place where we try to save money is not setting up the transformer or the electrical infrastructure, because that has additional cost into that. When we cross the LT limit, the cost comes onto the operator and everything is passed on to us. So what happens in these cases is we have to restrict our charger to the capacity that the DISCOM has provided. Now, if a single vehicle takes 30 kilowatt and on a highway, if I want to cater to 2 vehicles at a time, I need a capacity of 60 kilowatt. But the ceiling is breached because the capacity given was 50 kilowatt. So that is something that we are trying to work with DISCOMs. Bangalore has recently come up with a policy where they have increased for EV charging stations to 150 kilowatt, which is a very huge ceiling. We do not want it to be that high, but at least something which can cater to 2 vehicles at a time. That's the first thing. The second thing that is there in majority of the states and is something from the regulatory body, not from DISCOM's end, is that one property can have only one connection. The reasoning that is given behind this is if a commercial property has a commercial connection and they get a lower tariff connection, they will try to steal electricity from it. We do agree to that, but what happens in this case is if I take an empty plot of land and I ask a EV user to charge his EV on that plot of land at 7 p.m. Nobody is comfortable charging there, right? Everyone wants to stop at a location where the current charging time varies between 45 minutes to 1 hour 15 minutes. And if I am spending this much time, I would like to have food, I would like to relax, or I would like to do some activity which takes me away from the pain of charging, because the time will reduce, but it may take 3 or 4 years at least. And the people who have bought EVs right now will struggle with the same thing for next 10 years unless they change their vehicle. So in those cases, what will happen is people will start feeling that, again, it's not something. And if we go with the existing commercial tariff, even though the DISCOMs and everyone has created a policy, published it, made it public, but the policy is not trickling down to the lowest level. So that is where the major issue comes. Haryana had a similar issue where our connection got rejected thrice. But then we talked to MD Haryana via Twitter and they were pretty approachable. They understood the problem. They filed a petition with HERC. It took 2.5 months. We agreed to that. But post that, it was a policy that was circulated statewide that if someone is applying for a EV charging connection, the connection should be restricted to the EV charging station, but can be allocated on a commercial property. So it serves the DISCOMs this thing because they are not going outside the regulatory boundary, whereas it serves the EV charging players also because they are easily able to cater to the tariff. So that is where everything is in fair and everyone is happy with that. Because ultimately, whatever we get, we would have to pass it on to the consumers. And if we are charging a lot of money to the consumers may feel it is getting equivalent to a petrol price. So why should I buy EVs and not a petrol vehicle? A petrol vehicle, pumps are available everywhere. I can travel this thing. And the second challenge that people face as of now is that charging stations have been set up, but those are not operational. So we try to ensure that any customer who's there with us, we provide them 24/7 support. And in case they are stuck at a station, because currently the businesses are not profitable, the margins are very thin, and the number of vehicles that are there are very limited. So you cannot make a lot of money, but we try to ensure that the customer gets an experience and they do not feel that it's a pain to drive an electric vehicle. An automatic vehicle is something that everyone loves, and electric is always an automatic vehicle, gives you a lot of relaxation in your foot. And based on that, the experience is taking them this thing, because then they tell 10 people that buy a EV, you will love the experience. But if we make it a painful experience, they will only tell 2 people that buy an EV. And the mission that we have, that we should have 30% vehicles till 2025, can never be achieved. Even if we give subsidies, people will not opt for those subsidies because effectively they are unable to utilize their vehicle. So perfect. That's just to say.
Thank you, Pushpin. That was I think you've done a great research, but you pose 3 major questions. One is that essentially the entire package becomes little cumbersome in terms of comprehending at the last mile. And apart from that, you also raise a good amount of question in terms of the billing cycle. Essentially, I've been part of this entire activity of commercials and billings in DISCOM, and I completely understand. See, DISCOM has a different way of comprehending the billing cycles. And
Yeah.
when you have not only billing cycle essentially, but even billing category. So if you are on a HT category or you're in the commercial category, at that point in time, any connection you probably pour in or port in would be again a commercial connection. How that will probably help you in terms of fetching a subsidized EV connection. I think that's a question which is very important to answer. And I would like to come to Shri Rupesh Chawla, DGM, Rajasthan Electronics and Instruments Limited. Do we have you, Mr. Chawla? I can see you in the window.
Good afternoon, sir.
So, very good afternoon. Thank you so much for staying peaceful. I know that you are watching or probably hearing every question on close quarters. And I think this is the time, almost the time has arrived that I should muster all these questions and come back to you with an answer. There are issues, Pushpin, we had discussion with Pushpin, we had discussion with Sujan, we have a lot of other people who have highlighted some transactional issues in terms of how the policies actually come in the last mile. How does it converge to a feel-good factor for every, not only for the consumer at the tail end, but also for the supply chain manager or the person at the EV charging station. Can you please throw your insights over here?
Sir, what REIL is doing in this sector has been explained by our respected MD, sir. And as far as what REIL has done and what are the projects we are looking for in the future has been explained. Now, I just wanted to highlight some of the issues which we are facing during the implementation of this charging infrastructure, creation of charging infrastructure. First of all, land. The land is the prime requirement for establishment of any public charging station in a city or in a highway. So, Rajasthan government has released one order regarding the allotment of land on 50% reserve price. That is a great initiative, but I think it will be better if government of Rajasthan issues some of policy regarding the allotment of land for this EV charging station on revenue sharing basis. Because this business is in very initial stage, and the viability, if you go for the business model of this business, the viability comes after 6 years. So this is the main hurdle regarding this land allotment. REIL has received approximately 131 charging station under FAME 2, but at this time we were able to get 60 locations, and we are awaiting remaining locations. Second is power connection. Mr. Pushpendra Vishal has already covered those points. A few points which left out, that is demand charges. I request Mr. SP Gupta sir that demand charges for LT connection is 40 and 130 for HT connection. A lot of states have already waived off these demand charges, fixed charges for EV connection. So that can be considered in the next EV policy. One more thing which Mr. Vishal has already covered, the load factor of these charging stations, because the density of EVs are very less. So the load factor for any public EV charging station is very less. So as Karnataka has done, they have extended the load limit from 50 kilowatt to 150 kilowatt for HT connection. So the LT connection will be given up to 150 kilowatt. So all the transformer and other electrical infrastructure need not to be established there for say 2 to 5 years. Then we can convert it into HT connection. And last thing, fast track electrical connection for EV charging. There should be a single window system. Attractive rates are being finalized by the state nodal agency. So we request state nodal agency to consider the investment involved into the charging instrument and the infrastructure, electrical infrastructure.
Okay.
That's all from my
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chawla. I think you've shaped it very well, and I think we heard Madam from RICO also. We heard Madam Rayar, and she is also very progressive in terms of devising. RICO essentially looks at devising innovative models in terms of engaging EV partnerships. So I am pretty sure that RICO must be doing a lot of work in the think tank. But before we move ahead, I think Mr. P.K. Gupta, can we have Mr. Gupta from JVVNL to answer these?
Yes, sir. Sir, I heard everything, sir. I would like to, sir, I would like to submit that we are also very much in support of the EV charging stations, and we also see it as a very good thing for the perspective of the mankind.
Right.
But we have got the limitations as far as the DISCOMs authorities are concerned.
Sure.
Anyway, if they require the load requirement more than 50 kilowatt in LT sector, then obviously we want the favor of RERC, the regulators.
Right.
That's why they have to represent whatever they require.
Right.
Say with respect to the increase in LT system from 50 kilowatt to 150 kilowatt, we will appreciate, but we will require the approval from the regulator. And one more thing, they require the exemption in the demand. We don't have any problem. Suppose we get the relaxation from the regulator. For that's why I would request any of the person who is dealing in the EV stations, they must represent their case in the regulator. Then while filing their application, that's why at the time of deciding the supply code, and by passing any regulation or by passing any order, the RERC can direct the DISCOMs, and we will implement accordingly, sir. We will implement accordingly, and accordingly the infrastructure will change it.
Thank you, Mr. Gupta. That was a great initiative. I think this webinar becomes a very important fountainhead in terms of giving fresh avenues and ideas towards rationalizing the EV tariffs, and also bringing a fresh position for EV charging stations within the ecosystem. Now, moving on to the supply side, can I have Himanshu Saini from Magnitude Motors? How do you see the supply ecosystem moving on? Himanshu, Magnitude Motors. Himanshu, can you hear me from Magnitude Motors?
Yes, sir.
Hi, Himanshu. Can you give me some insights on how do you see the supply moving in? What's your perspective? You've been on the supply side. How do you look at the supplies? How do you think the consumers are engaging with it? How do you think it will match the demand?
Actually, I would like to say that we people are really very struggling in the sense of getting spares as well as new vehicles also. And there is no any fixed policy that, as this, I feel that this industry is like very booming right now, and it is very different than ICE. Then there must be some criteria that the OEMs or that the manufacturers, these people are making anyone a dealer for selling an EV. But as I am working in this industry from last like 2 years, I am feeling that this is a work which someone must be very much expert or having some kind of diploma or degree in as like mechanical or in electrical. Because dealer is responsible that, okay, you are making a very marvelous product, you are giving a very nice vehicle, but a dealer is not educating the people, the buyers. And, dealers are also unable to rectify the problems in the EV. And I don't feel that the other dealers, by which what is happening, that there is lots and lots of negativity, spreading in industry right now, that, okay, the EV which was coming a decade ago, it is similar like that if we are going to buy an EV, we will definitely face problems, and plethora of problems are over there in like a converter, a controller, motor. Many times there is a sensor failure, and the vehicle is standstill. And and we are also not getting spares because as we all know that spares we are not manufacturing over here, we are importing it from other countries. All right. And second thing, what I'm feeling that if you are giving subsidy, all right, on vehicle, so what these people are doing, they are just putting all of this stress on dealer regarding subsidy. Like center is giving a subsidy of like 15,000 to 30-40,000 according to the capacity of the battery, and as well as the state government is also giving some subsidy like SGST of 2.5% is waived off. So this whole paperwork and all of this chaos and from last night we are struggling.
I completely understand, Iman. So there is a need of, probably you are emphasizing on a very important aspect of simplifying the process, and there should be a convergence of process in terms of doing the change management, in doing the onboarding of the dealers, so that it becomes a simplified process to get on board. We have Dr. Arun Kumar Verma, electrical engineering from MNIT. Dr. Arun, can you hear us? There is some problem with the. Can you unmute your mic, Dr. Arun?
Yeah.
Perfect. Perfect.
Yeah.
I think the subject is now probably almost the buck essentially stops at you. The discussions are probably
basically, yeah. I was very keen on the whatever people have spoken till now.
Sure.
From Rico, even MD Reel, and even Dr. Rupesh is there. He's my friend. Absolutely. I was very carefully listening to all those people. Actually, I have a only simple thing, because I'm doing research in that area. I have a collaboration with Reel also. I have a collaboration with Janus also.
Great.
So see, we should work on the indigenous thing. For example, 80% people in India are having those two-wheelers. Okay, I'm owning. See, we have developed one e-cycle in our lab. I'm using that e-cycle since almost 2 years. I'm not using my car in my campus.
Lovely.
So ultimately, if in order to fabricate that cycle, I need a battery, I need a motor, and that my dependency is on China. See, we don't have a indigenous motor controller in that segment, two-wheeler segment. So those industry people who are here or listening me, we can join together to develop that indigenous thing, because we need to take care for the 80% people who are using two-wheelers, and rest 20% or 18% people who are having those Mercedes or big SUVs. Those are the different people. Okay, they have a money, they can have so many things, but for the 80% people who are dependent on those e-cycles, e-scooters, and those e-rickshaws, we need to take care for that, and definitely we need to develop that indigenous motor first. Okay, root level working, and then after that, second thing is basically swappable battery station. But again, the problem is lithium. But already our Prime Minister is working on that side, that we have Khanij Videsh India Limited. I think some KVIL is formed that is working in that direction. Okay, so just to cater, just to mitigate the dependency on China, basically. Okay, this because this lithium reservoir are basically Chile, China, and Australia, Brazil, all those countries, those are having the lithium reservoirs. Okay, and already one of the professor told that we need to make shift. From lithium to some other material also. Absolutely. So these are the ground level work. We need to totally work on that indigenous thing. So that to the self-dependency will come. If we dependent on any other country, that won't be of any use in a longer run. Okay, shorter run we can show some glossy picture that these are happening, this is happening, that, but ultimately we are not Atmanirbhar type people. Then ultimately it won't work. Absolutely, this is my perception.
That's a great point, Dr. Arun Kumar. You essentially brought a very important point here, that we must, this is an opportune time that we must become almost Atmanirbhar. We must look at exploring options within the domestic boundaries or within the national boundaries, in terms of exploring talent, resources, natural resources, and accumulating all together. And institutions such as IITs, Manipal, and MNITs are always ready for partnership in terms of knowledge partnership. Dr. Malik, I hope we have Dr. Ashish Malik also along with us here from Manipal University.
Yes, sir.
Dr. Malik,
yes, sir.
You've been driving a little bit of incubation facilities. You've been tracking more about incubation facilities within the institute. domain, an exchange of innovation and implication of these. How do you see this happening in terms of how do you set a partnership of research with execution?
So first of all, thank you for giving me this opportunity to be witnessing this event. I would like to take this opportunity to convey very important it's an issue that we in India, we often say that okay, we need investors, we need FDI, etc., etc. The point is there are so many incubators even in Rajasthan itself, like Atal incubation centers, like in Banasthali, in MNIT, in Manipal and everywhere. Incubator is just a thing which is for newborn. At the end, to make a successful human body, parents have to take care, right?
Right. Absolutely.
Hospital will release the baby from the incubation within at the max 15 days or 1 month. Now it's all about parents' capability to raise that kid from that 1 month up to at least 10 years of age, when that kid is strong enough to survive on its own or something like that. So similarly, what is happening to Indian startups, technology wise, there is no there is no hurdle anyway. These days everything is available on internet. You can get Tesla codes on GitHub. So we cannot say that okay, the technology is beyond our reach and everything. You can design the controller, MATLAB tutorials are there, but who will do that? So there are some hardworking students who come up that okay, sir, we want to do this project, we want to start a company to develop a BMS, right? They develop a kind of prototype. Where will they fabricate that? So a big challenge these days is fabrication. When you approach any company to make your let us say electric scooter you want to make, so the company will say okay, what is the minimum order quantity? I cannot supply you more than less than 1,000 pieces because there is a die cost and everything is involved. So I'm personally talking because to get a drill in my shaft, axle shaft, I need to spend I need to travel VKI, Bagru, etc. After spending almost 2,000 rupees in fuel. Finally, for that 200 rupees work, I was managed to get it done from some shop. So the number one is the facilities for startups to help them build the prototype so that they can proceed that. And second thing is these look at this thing, Tonk Road, JLN Marg. There are apartments worth 6 crore rupees and they are selling like hotcakes. But you hardly see any person investing 1 crore in any startup. Even for investing 2 lakh rupees, they will literally, I don't know what they expect from those young guys.
I completely get your point, Mr. Dr.
We need a change in the mentality of the businessmen people.
Absolutely, you need champions for change and champions for.
Because we cannot blame government for everything. Government is just a facilitator.
That's a great point, and I think that is the moment where probably we are absolutely at the edge of this roundtable, and I think we have a very important 2 pillars of this roundtable who essentially not only profess a kind of best practices, but also see the industry largely on a very converged level. And they have been part of nurturing the sector right from beginning or right from initial stages, and then setting up best practices and creating a complete different platform. We have I think we have Mr. Alok Rai with us. Mr. Alok Rai.
Mr. Rai has not been able to join us, but Mr. Datta is there, and we're looking forward to his insight.
I was absolutely seeing Mr. BC Datta right from the first overture, right from the overture of this roundtable. Mr. Datta, what's your view? You are Vice President Corporate Affairs, Ola Electric. I'm sure you see this entire ecosystem with a very different magnitude. And your vision in terms of setting up and how this entire thing converges at one point is essentially what all of us are now looking at, because there is no one solution. There are challenges, but most of the challenges are in silos. So how do you see at this? How do you see this at a very converged and at a focal point?
Yeah, good afternoon, and thank you for this opportunity. Very, very exciting times are ahead, and the Ola is definitely has set a very high benchmark also in terms of, the especially the two-wheeler. Now, having said that, is thing that is happening is in terms of charging infra is definitely one that is definitely should be far ahead of times. And just yesterday I saw ABB is has done some innovation in terms of charging infra, where within few minutes you can charge almost 50-60% of the battery it can be charged. So definitely charging is one thing that needs to be scaled up, and also we need to make it as quick as possible. Also, another thing is technologically it should be like as and when there is some new technology or new thing that is happening, it should be in a position to replace and then again do that. That is most important. Ola, of course, has done several benchmarks in terms of bookings, in terms of getting the orders. So also we are setting up the facility which is the largest in the world. So Bhavish Agarwal has been vocal on this, and he keeps making announcements. So definitely very huge difference in terms of making the technology. As you were telling, the Atmanirbhar, this is one that is developed in-house in India and made in India and also made for the world. So there are a lot of things that are very exciting things are happening, and I hope and wish the others also will join in this race. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Mr. Datta. This was a great insight, and I can completely comprehend how Ola must be seeing this entire set of challenges as an opportunity and not as a challenge, and how you apply the entire thing with more kind of process-driven ecosystem. The summation of the entire roundtable seems that EVs essentially are the hours of change, and we are breaking through. We have a breakthrough where EVs will now, the adaptability to EVs will be faster, and electric vehicles essentially not in terms of essentially I saw a lot of reports coming in where electric vehicle essentially not only limited to flying on road, but electric essentially has become a coefficient for even flying or for trafficking even in the skies. So as you see that electric vehicles, you see more of the drones also opportunities in terms of transportation. And that's a great point. Thank you so much, Mr. Datta. I think let's move. I think we've almost reached to the edge of this roundtable. We don't have much on the panel. Maybe could you please come in and please share your insights and what are the concluding points?
Sure. Thank you so much. But if I may, do we have a minute for one last question to Mr. Datta?
Of course, please. You should go ahead.
So, hello. So given
Happy
that,
to hear you.
Given that Ola is looking at a pan-India presence in terms of its vehicles and also its charging network, and it's planning to eliminate all the intermediaries, I would like to hear from you that what are your expectations from Rajasthan's EV policy?
Oh, great. Definitely. As Mr. Gupta was putting it, and also I heard, the customer has to be, we have to entice or attract him to come to, this electric vehicle. So definitely it requires a lot of, subsidies, attractions in terms of, one is when they buy the scooter based on some kilowatt, we are offering Delhi and of course Gujarat are offering. So we look forward that Rajasan also does a similar offer. One more important thing is in terms of the scrappage of vehicle. this is another most important area where our request to the Rajasthan government is please initiate action so that every vehicle, every Ola scooter, electric scooter that I am selling, there is one reduction of petrol scooter going down, so that we take the electric scooters, petrol scooter is scrapped and some subsidy is given for that, and then they buy the electric scooter. So this way, what would happen? The number would increase. They also benefit the environment. So these are the 2-3 areas where definitely the Rajasthan government should come forward. And one last thing is on the charging. Unless there is a proper charging facility and stations, the ecosystem, it will not improve. So even though someone can charge at home also, so public charging stations are definitely need of the hour. So there are a lot of impetus and concessions to be given, subsidies to be offered for the improvement of the charging stations. Thank you, Ma. So nice of you, and thanks for the opportunity.
Mr. Datta, can I have one more round with you? I know this the answer you gave actually cascaded to one more point. Does Ola also look at doing the skill enhancement in terms of training people as part of the change management or the transition?
Yeah, Ola is the only company possibly we are setting up the world's largest all women plant is being set up. So we will also train them. There are a lot of training being done. So we also request all other manufacturers to initiate trainings. Unless there is a skill development happening in India in all these electric vehicle facilities, things will not shift. The shifting will happen only when we do this skill development. At the same time, we should also encourage the institutes. I saw several institutes coming forward and making some curriculum in terms of electric vehicle. So that is also another need of the hour. So one is not just the manufacturing, there's also skill development, then R&D. Lastly, the R&D also has to be vastly encouraged. So there may be some youngster who will be doing it. Every time you get a WhatsApp video or message as to somebody has done this, it really makes us feel very proud that the Indian mindset is especially in terms of innovation definitely can do much better, and we can. Innovation definitely. So, lot of these incubation centers should be set up in addition to the skill development. I have seen Tamil Nadu doing this. So, Tamil Nadu has been setting up incubation centers wherein they will attract anybody having a knowledge, or he wants to innovate, or he wants to try something very innovative or technologically advanced than what is available today. He is welcome to do it, and welcome to do it at free of charge also. So my request is Rajasthan government should take some steps on this and definitely do this.
Thank you, Mr. Datta. This was a great insight. Trineni, you take over from here.
Thank you so much, Mr. Datta, and thank you so much, Eevees. I think we are right on time, and I would not like us to be delayed. So I'll just sum up in 1 or 2 lines and then provide a vote of thanks. I think we have had a very stellar panel today, and a lot of important insights have come in from both our esteemed government stakeholders as well as from the industry and the academia. The key insight for me from this particular roundtable would be that all the systems are there. In this larger EV ecosystem, all the smaller systems are there in place. What is required is an integration and an interlinkage between all of these smaller systems. They need to come together for us to effectively effectively implement this particular transition. There should be a focus on indigenization, definitely, in terms of manufacturing, in terms of the technology development that's happening, and there should be a focus on appropriate regulatory approvals and also standardization. Standardization would be one of the challenges and also one of the opportunities going forward for India as well as for Rajasthan. And at the same time, there should be a heightened scope for incubation and for providing a space to these startups who are actually taking forward this electric vehicle revolution. So I'm so glad that all of you were able to be here with us on this roundtable conference, and we thank each and every one of you for your time and for your very, very important insights. Thank you, and we hope to have you on board the next on our future roundtable conferences as well. We'll be sharing the proceedings from this with all of you, and we look forward to engaging with every one of you in future. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, everyone.